was an hour into a flight to my parents' 40th anniversary party when my husband turned his phone to me, his face pale. "Read this," he whispered. "And whatever you do, don't panic." I read the email he showed me, and by the time we landed, the father I had adored my entire life was a stranger to me. My parents' marriage was the kind people wrote greeting cards about. For 40 years, they had been the couple everyone else measured themselves against. My father, Dr. Michael Chen, was a retired cardiac surgeon who had spent 3 decades saving lives at St. Mary's Hospital. He wasn't just good at his job, he was a legend. Patients sent him Christmas cards for years after their surgeries. Medical students asked to shadow him. When he finally retired 5 years ago, the hospital named a wing after him. My mother, Patricia, had been an elementary school teacher for 35 years. Even now, we couldn't go to the grocery store without running into former students who lit up at the sight of her, eager to introduce their own children to the woman who had taught them to read. I grew up watching them, really watching them. The way my father would wake up early every Saturday to make my mother's coffee exactly how she liked it, with 1 sugar and a splash of cream. The way she would lay out his clothes for important hospital board meetings, making sure his tie matched his pocket square. They had their own language, built over 4 decades. A raised eyebrow from my mother could make my father laugh. A gentle touch on her shoulder from him could calm her worst anxieties. They finished each other's sentences. They took evening walks around the neighborhood holding hands, even in their 70s. When I was 8 years old, I asked my mother what love looked like. She smiled and pointed at my father, who was in the backyard attempting to assemble a swing set for me. He had no idea what he was doing. The instructions were upside down. He had parts scattered everywhere. But he had taken the entire day off from the hospital, something he almost never did, because he wanted to build it himself. "That's love," my mother said. "Showing up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." My childhood was stable in a way that felt almost fictional looking back. We had family dinners every single night, no matter how late my father got home from the hospital. We took road trips every summer to national parks, my father driving while my mother navigated with actual paper maps, both of them singing off-key to oldies on the radio. When I was in high school and going through a terrible breakup, my father sat with me on the porch for 3 hours just listening. He didn't offer solutions or tell me it would be okay. He just listened. And when I was done crying, he said, "The right person will fight to stay. The wrong person will make it easy to leave." I've carried those words with me ever since. My father's medical career was always a source of pride in our family. He wasn't one of those doctors who kept his work life separate. He would come home and tell us stories, careful never to violate privacy, but sharing the human moments, the teenager whose life he saved who went on to become a teacher, the grandmother who danced at her granddaughter's wedding 5 years after he performed a quadruple bypass. He taught me that medicine wasn't just about the science. It was about seeing people at their most vulnerable and giving them hope. His partner for most of his career was a man named Dr. Robert Lang. I remember Uncle Rob, as I called him, coming to our house for barbecues and holiday parties. He was quieter than my father, more serious, but they balanced each other well. They had started their practice together right out of residency and built it into one of the most respected cardiac surgery teams in the state. When Uncle Rob died by suicide 7 years ago, my father was devastated. He barely spoke for weeks. My mother said it was the first time she had ever seen him truly broken. The funeral was massive. Uncle Rob had been beloved too. My father gave the eulogy and could barely get through it. He talked about their friendship, their partnership, and how much he would miss his closest friend. We all assumed the suicide was related to Uncle Rob's struggles with depression, something my father mentioned quietly in the months that followed. 2 years after Uncle Rob's death, my father retired. He said he couldn't do the work without his partner. It didn't feel the same. He wanted to spend his remaining years traveling with my mother, playing golf, and spoiling his future grandchildren. It seemed like a natural, peaceful transition. The hospital threw him a retirement party that looked more like a wedding. Hundreds of people came. There were speeches and tears and standing ovations. My father looked happy but tired, ready to close that chapter of his life. Now, my parents were about to celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary. My mother had planned a huge party at their house. Family was flying in from across the country. Friends from every era of their lives had RSVP'd. There would be catering, a live band, and a slideshow of photos spanning 4 decades. My mother had been planning it for 6 months. And she was in full teacher mode, organizing every detail with color-coded spreadsheets. My father pretended to be annoyed by the fuss, but I could tell he was deeply touched. 40 years with the same person was an accomplishment worth celebrating, especially when that relationship had been as strong and steady as theirs. I had met my husband, Liam, 8 years ago at a journalism conference. I was there covering it for the nonprofit I worked for. He was there as an investigative reporter for a major newspaper. We ended up sitting next to each other at a painfully boring panel about ethics in media and started passing notes like middle schoolers, making sarcastic comments about the speaker. By the end of the day, we had exchanged numbers. By the end of the month, we were inseparable. We got married 3 years later in a small ceremony in my parents' backyard. My father walked me down the makeshift aisle with tears streaming down his face. My mother cried through the entire ceremony. Liam's toast at the reception included a line I still think about. He said, "I knew Anna was the one when I met her parents and saw what 40 years of real love looks like. They set the bar high, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to reach it." Liam was everything I needed. He was steady where I was anxious. He was logical where I was emotional. He had this incredible ability to cut through noise and see the truth of a situation. It came from his years as an investigative journalist. He asked the right questions. He didn't accept easy answers. He dug until he found the real story. But he was also deeply kind. He never used his skills to hurt people. He used them to uncover injustice and hold powerful people accountable. I admired him more than anyone except my father. Our marriage wasn't perfect. We argued about stupid things like whose turn it was to unload the dishwasher and whether we could afford to take a trip to Europe. But the foundation was solid. We trusted each other completely. We made each other laugh. We supported each other's dreams. When I looked at Liam, I saw the same thing I saw when I looked at my parents, a partnership built to last. When my mother called 6 months ago to tell me about the anniversary party, I immediately asked for the dates so Liam and I could book our flights. We both took time off work. This was a big deal. 40 years. My mother was so excited she kept calling me with updates. The caterer she had chosen, the florist, the band. She sent me photos of the dress she had bought, a beautiful navy blue gown that made her look 20 years younger. My father, she reported, had even agreed to wear a tuxedo, which was saying something because he hated formal wear. The flight to my parents' house was supposed to be easy. It was only 3 hours. We booked an afternoon flight so we would land in time for a family dinner the night before the big party. I had packed a new dress and the photo album I had been assembling for months, filled with pictures of my parents from every stage of their relationship. Liam had his laptop because he was finishing up an article that was due the following week. He had promised me he would only work on the flight and then be fully present for the celebration. We got to the airport early, checked our bags, and went through security without any issues. Liam bought us coffee, and I bought a magazine I would never read. We boarded the plane and found our seats, 2 on the aisle in the middle of the cabin. I took the window seat, Liam took the aisle. A middle-aged woman sat between us, already asleep before takeoff. The flight attendants did their safety demonstration. The engines roared to life. We taxied down the runway and lifted into the sky. For the first hour, everything was perfectly normal. I read a few pages of my book but couldn't focus. I was too excited. I kept thinking about seeing my parents, about the party, about watching them dance to the same song they had danced to at their wedding. Liam opened his laptop as soon as the seatbelt sign turned off. The plane had Wi-Fi, and he logged in immediately, pulling up the draft of his article. I watched him work for a while. He had this little crease between his eyebrows when he concentrated. I found it endearing. I must have dozed off at some point because I woke up to the sound of Liam typing more aggressively than usual. His fingers were hitting the keys hard, the way he did when he was frustrated or stressed. I glanced over at him. His jaw was tight. His shoulders were rigid. He was staring at his screen with an intensity that made my stomach drop. Something was wrong. "Everything okay?" I whispered, not wanting to wake the woman between us. He didn't answer right away. He kept staring at the screen. Then he scrolled up, reading something from the beginning. His face went pale. Actually pale. I had never seen Liam look scared, but in that moment, he looked terrified. "Liam," I said again, louder this time. "What's wrong?" He turned to me slowly, and I saw something in his eyes I couldn't identify. Anger, sadness, shock. Maybe all three. He glanced at the woman between us, confirmed she was still asleep, and then leaned across her carefully, holding his laptop at an angle so only I could see the screen. "Read this," he said quietly. His voice was shaking. "And whatever you do, don't panic." Those 4 words, "don't panic," made me panic immediately. My heart started racing. My hands went cold. I looked down at the screen. It was his email inbox. There was one email open, sent from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line was simple and devastating. "The truth about Dr. Michael Chen." I looked up at Liam. "What is this?" "Just read it," he said. "All of it. Then we'll talk." I took the laptop from him and started reading. The email was long, several pages of single-spaced text. It was addressed directly to Liam, referencing an article he had written 2 years ago about medical malpractice cover-ups in private hospitals. I remembered that article. It had won an award. Liam had spent months investigating how hospitals protected doctors who made catastrophic mistakes, prioritizing their reputations over patient safety and justice. The email began, "Dear Mr. Harrison, my name is David Lang. You don't know me, but I know your work. 2 years ago, you wrote an article that changed my life. It was about how hospitals cover up medical negligence to protect their doctors and their bottom line. Reading it felt like you had climbed inside my head and written down every thought I'd had for 30 years. I have been carrying a secret for most of my life. And after reading your article, I decided that when the time was right, I would tell you the truth. That time is now. My mother's name was Elizabeth Lang. She died 30 years ago during what should have been a routine cardiac surgery at St. Mary's Hospital. She was only 42 years old. She had a minor valve issue, something the doctors said was completely fixable. The surgery was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in October. My father, Dr. Robert Lang, was a cardiac surgeon at the same hospital. He wasn't performing the surgery, but he was in the OR as an observer because the surgeon was his partner and closest friend, Dr. Michael Chen. My mother never woke up from that surgery. We were told she had an unexpected complication, a reaction to the anesthesia that no one could have predicted. We were told everything was done correctly, that it was just a tragic, unforeseeable accident. My father was destroyed. I was only 12 years old, but I watched him fall apart. He stopped sleeping. He stopped eating. He moved through the house like a ghost. And he kept working with Dr. Chen, his partner, even though I could see something between them had broken. For years, I believed the story we were told. My mother's death was a terrible accident. But when I was 17, I found a box in my father's office. He had died by suicide just a few weeks earlier, and I was going through his things, trying to understand why he had left us. Inside that box was the real story. There was a journal written in my father's handwriting, page after page of guilt and anguish. He wrote about the day my mother died. He wrote about how Dr. Chen had shown up to the surgery late, how he smelled like alcohol, how his hands were shaking. My father wrote that he should have stopped the surgery right then. He should have reported Chen. He should have protected my mother. But Chen was his best friend. They had built a practice together. Chen swore he was fine, that he'd had one drink the night before, but was completely sober now. My father, against every instinct, trusted him. During the surgery, Chen made a mistake, a catastrophic, irreversible mistake. He severed an artery he should have been nowhere near. My mother bled out on the table. My father tried to help him fix it, but it was too late. She was gone in minutes. After my mother died, the hospital administration went into crisis mode. They knew what had happened. They knew Chen had been drinking, but Chen was their golden boy. He brought in millions of dollars in revenue. He had a spotless public reputation. So they buried it. They paid my father to stay quiet. They paid our family a settlement on the condition we signed an NDA and never spoke about the real cause of death. They falsified the coroner's report. They made it disappear. My father took the money because he didn't know what else to do. He had a 12-year-old son to raise alone, but the guilt ate him alive. For 23 years, he carried the weight of that lie. He kept working alongside the man who killed his wife. And eventually, the weight became too much. He took his own life, and I believe it was because he couldn't live with what he had done, or failed to do, any longer. I found all of this in his journal. I also found copies of documents he had kept hidden, the real coroner's report before it was changed, a copy of the settlement agreement, bank records showing the payments from the hospital, and photos, dated the morning of the surgery, showing Dr. Chen arriving to the hospital. If you look closely, you can see it in his face. He wasn't sober. I have attached these documents to this email. I have spent the last 7 years trying to decide what to do with them. I thought about going to the police, but the statute of limitations has passed. I thought about going to the media, but I didn't want to turn my mother's death into a circus. I thought about confronting Dr. Chen directly, but I didn't trust myself not to do something I'd regret. Then, 6 months ago, I was scrolling through social media and saw that you, Mr. Harrison, are married to Dr. Chen's daughter, Anna. I saw the photos from your wedding. I saw Dr. Chen walking her down the aisle. I saw the posts about what a wonderful man he is, what a wonderful father. And I realized Anna deserves to know the truth about who her father really is. I am sending this to you, not to her, because I don't want to ambush her. You're a journalist. You know how to handle difficult truths. You can verify everything I've sent you, and then you can decide what to do with it. But I need you to know this. Dr. Michael Chen killed my mother because he was drunk. He destroyed my family, and he has spent the last 30 years being celebrated as a hero while my mother's real story stayed buried. I don't know what justice looks like after 30 years, but I know the truth matters. I know my mother's life mattered, and I know that Anna and everyone who loves Dr. Chen deserves to know who he really is. Sincerely, David Lang. I finished reading and felt like the floor of the plane had disappeared beneath me. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the laptop. I read the email again, certain I had misunderstood, but the words didn't change. My father, drunk, A mistake, a death, a cover-up. Uncle Rob's guilt, his suicide. 30 years of lies. This isn't real, I whispered. My voice didn't sound like my own. This is fake. Someone is trying to hurt Dad. This is some kind of scam. Liam reached over and tapped the laptop screen, scrolling down past the email to the attachments. I thought the same thing, he said quietly. But Anna, look. There were 6 attachments. I opened the first one. It was a scanned page from a journal, the handwriting shaky and uneven. The entry was dated 2 years after my mother. 2 years after Elizabeth Lang's death. It read, I should have stopped him. I knew something was wrong the moment he walked into the OR. I could see it in his eyes, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe my best friend would put a patient at risk. I didn't want to believe he would put Elizabeth at risk. And now, she's gone, and it's my fault as much as his. Maybe more. I should have been stronger. I should have said something. I should have saved her. I opened the second attachment. It was a coroner's report marked Original Do Not File. The cause of death was listed as exsanguination due to surgical error during cardiac valve replacement procedure. There were notes in the margins, handwritten, that said, revised to anesthesia complication. Chen's name not to appear. The third attachment was a settlement agreement between the Lange family and St. Mary's Hospital. It was for $2 million. In exchange, Robert Lang and his son, David Lang, agreed to never publicly discuss the circumstances of Elizabeth Lang's death. The agreement was signed by my father as a witness. The fourth attachment was a bank record showing a wire transfer from St. Mary's Hospital to an account in my father's name. It was for $500,000, dated 1 week after Elizabeth Lang's death. The memo line read, consulting fee. The fifth attachment was a photo, grainy and printed on old paper, but clear enough. It showed my father walking into the hospital on what I assumed was the morning of the surgery. His tie was loose, his hair was messy, and his eyes. Even in a decades-old, low-quality photo, I could see his eyes were unfocused. The sixth attachment was another page from the journal. This entry was dated just days before Uncle Rob's suicide. It read, I can't do this anymore. Every time I see him, I see Elizabeth dying on that table. Every time I shake his hand, I feel like I'm betraying her all over again. The hospital gave us money to make us go away. Michael gave me his word he would never touch alcohol again. And as far as I know, he hasn't. But it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't bring her back. I've tried to forgive him. I've tried to forgive myself. But I can't. I'm so tired. I'm so tired of lying. I'm so tired of pretending everything is fine when the person I loved most in the world is gone because I was too weak to speak up. David deserves better than this. He deserves a father who isn't a coward. I don't know how to be that man anymore. I closed the laptop. I couldn't look at it anymore. I couldn't breathe. The cabin felt like it was shrinking, the walls pressing in on me. The woman next to me shifted in her sleep, and I almost screamed. Anna, Liam said softly. He was watching me with so much concern it made me want to cry. Talk to me. This has to be fake, I said again. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. The details were too specific. The documents looked real, the journal entries were too raw, too painful to be fabricated, and the timeline matched. Uncle Rob's suicide, my father's retirement, the hospital wing named in his honor right before he left. It all fit together in a way that made horrible, perfect sense. I don't think it's fake, Liam said gently. I've spent the last 20 minutes looking at these documents. The coroner's report has a state seal. The settlement agreement has law firm letterhead I can verify. The bank record has routing numbers. Anna, I think it's real. No, I said. The word came out too loud. The woman between us stirred. I lowered my voice to a harsh whisper. No, my father is not a murderer. He's not. He saved thousands of lives. He's the best man I know. This is a lie. It has to be. I'm not saying he's a murderer, Liam said carefully. But Anna, people make mistakes. Even good people, especially when they're struggling. He wasn't struggling 30 years ago, I shot back. That was the height of his career. He was at the top of his field. He was happy. We were happy. You were a kid, Liam said. You didn't know what was happening behind closed doors. None of us did. I turned away from him and pressed my forehead against the plane window. Below us, the world looked tiny and insignificant. Little houses and roads and rivers that meant everything to the people down there, but looked like nothing from up here. I wondered if that's how my father saw that woman, Elizabeth Lang. Just another patient, another surgery, another day at the office, until she wasn't. Why now? I asked, still staring out the window. If this David Langs person has had this information for 7 years, why is he sending it now? Why send it to you right before my parents' anniversary party? I don't know, Liam admitted. Maybe he's been working up the courage. Maybe he saw something on social media that pushed him over the edge. Or maybe he wants to ruin the party. Maybe that's his version of justice. That's cruel, I said. So is covering up someone's death, Liam replied quietly. I whipped around to face him. You believe him. You actually believe that my father did this. I believe the evidence is credible enough that we need to ask him about it, Liam said. His voice was steady, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. Anna, I love your dad. You know I do. He's been nothing but wonderful to me. But I'm also a journalist, and if this is true, if even half of this is true, it's a story that needs to be told. A story! I felt anger rising in my chest, hot and sharp. This is my family. This is my father. You can't turn this into one of your articles. I'm not going to, Liam said firmly. I would never do that without talking to you first. But Anna, think about it. If your father did this, if he made a mistake that killed someone and then covered it up, doesn't that woman's son deserve to have his truth acknowledged? Doesn't his mother's memory deserve justice? And what about my father's life? I demanded. What about everything he's done since then? All the people he's saved? Does that count for nothing? It counts for a lot, Liam said. But it doesn't erase what happened to Elizabeth Lang. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to grab the laptop and throw it down the aisle and pretend I had never seen the email. But I couldn't. The truth was sitting between us now, heavy and undeniable. My father, the man I had idolized my entire life, might have killed someone. And even if it was an accident, even if it was a one-time mistake, he had spent 30 years lying about it. 30 years accepting praise and awards and a hospital wing in his name, while a woman's real cause of death stayed buried. I thought about Elizabeth Lang. I tried to picture her. She was 42 when she died. She had a 12-year-old son. She went into surgery thinking she would be fine, that she would come home in a few days and go back to her normal life. She trusted my father, and he killed her. The thought made me sick. I fumbled for the air sickness bag in the seat pocket in front of me, but I didn't throw up. I just sat there, holding the bag, trying to breathe. What do we do? I finally asked. My voice was small. I don't know, Liam said honestly. We land in 2 hours. We're supposed to go straight to your parents' house for dinner. Tomorrow is the party. I can't go to the party, I said. I can't stand there and smile and celebrate their marriage when I know this. So, what do you want to do? Liam asked. Do you want to confront him tonight? Do you want to wait until after the party? Do you want to go home and pretend we never saw the email? I don't know, I said. The tears finally came hot and angry. I don't know. Liam reached across the sleeping woman and took my hand. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. If you want to confront him, we'll confront him together. If you want to leave, we'll leave. If you want time to think, we'll find time. But Anna, we can't ignore this. You know we can't. He was right. I hated that he was right, but he was. I couldn't unknow this. I couldn't unsee those documents. I couldn't unhear the words in Uncle Rob's journal, the guilt and anguish that had driven him to take his own life. My father had done that. Maybe not directly, but his actions had set off a chain reaction that ended in his best friend's death. And he had just kept going. He had retired with honors. He had smiled at the camera during his retirement party. He had danced with my mother and played golf and planned this anniversary celebration like none of it had ever happened. The plane started its descent. The pilot came over the intercom and told us we would be landing in 20 minutes. The woman between us woke up and stretched. Liam closed his laptop and put it in his bag. I stared out the window and watched the ground get closer and closer. By the time we landed, I had made a decision. I was going to ask my father about the email, not at the party, not in front of the family, but tonight, when we got to the house, I would find a way to get him alone. And I would ask him, point blank, if any of it was true. I needed to hear him say it. I needed to look him in the eyes and see if the man I had loved my entire life was capable of lying to my face. We collected our bags and walked through the airport in silence. Liam kept glancing at me, checking to see if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I didn't know if I would ever be okay again. But I kept walking, one foot in front of the other. We picked up our rental car and drove to my parents' house. It was a 40-minute drive through familiar streets. I had grown up here. I knew every turn. But it all looked different now, like I was seeing it through someone else's eyes. The coffee shop where my father used to take me for hot chocolate on Saturday mornings, the park where we played catch, the hospital where he had worked for 30 years, where he had killed Elizabeth Lang. We pulled into my parents' driveway just as the sun was setting. The house looked exactly the same, white with blue shutters, a big front porch with rocking chairs, flower beds my mother maintained with obsessive care. It was the house from every happy memory I had, and now it felt like a crime scene. My mother opened the front door before we even got out of the car. She was wearing an apron and waving excitedly. "You're here," she called. "I was starting to worry about your flight." I forced myself to smile. I hugged her. She smelled like the roast she was cooking for dinner. "We're here," I said. "Sorry, we're a little late." "Don't be silly," she said, ushering us inside. "Your father is in his study. He's been on the phone all day with people confirming for tomorrow. Go say hello while I finish dinner." Liam and I walked through the house. It was decorated for the party. There were flowers everywhere. Photos of my parents hung on the walls, a timeline of their 40 years together. I saw a picture of them on their wedding day, young and impossibly happy. A picture of them holding me as a newborn. A picture from a vacation in Italy 10 years ago. Every photo was a lie. Or at least, every photo was missing a huge piece of the truth. We found my father in his study, sitting at his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when we walked in, and his face broke into a huge smile. "There's my girl," he said, standing up to hug me. I let him hug me, but I couldn't make myself hug him back. He must have felt the stiffness because he pulled away and looked at me with concern. "Everything okay?" he asked. "We need to talk," I said. My voice shook. "Liam and I need to talk to you, alone." My father's smile faded. He glanced at Liam, then back at me. "What's going on?" "Close the door," I said. He closed the door. The three of us stood there in his study, surrounded by his medical books and his framed diplomas and the awards he had won over his career. I thought about all the times I had sat in this room as a kid, watching him work, thinking he was the smartest, best person in the world. "Sit down, Dad," I said. He sat. Liam handed me his phone with the email pulled up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I held it out to my father. "Read this," I said. "And then you're going to tell me the truth." My father took the phone. I watched his face as he read. I saw the exact moment he realized what he was looking at. His face went gray. His hands started shaking. He read the entire email in silence, then scrolled through the attachments. When he got to the photo of himself entering the hospital, he closed his eyes. "Dad," I said. My voice cracked. "Is it true?" He didn't answer right away. He just sat there, holding the phone, his eyes still closed. When he finally opened them, they were filled with tears. "Yes," he whispered. "It's true." The word hit me like a physical blow. I actually stumbled backward. Liam caught me and guided me to a chair. I sat down hard. "All of it?" I asked. "You were drunk? You killed her? You covered it up?" "I wasn't drunk," my father said quickly. Then he stopped. I mean, I had been drinking. The night before, Rob and I had gone out to celebrate a successful surgery earlier that week. I had too much, but by the morning I thought I was fine. I thought I was sober. I wasn't impaired. At least, I didn't think I was. "But you made a mistake," Liam said quietly. My father nodded. A tear rolled down his cheek. "I made a mistake. A terrible, unforgivable mistake. I severed the wrong artery. It was a routine valve replacement. I had done hundreds of them. But that day, my hand slipped. Just for a second. And Elizabeth Lang bled out before we could stop it." "And you covered it up," I said. I couldn't believe I was saying these words. I couldn't believe this was happening. "The hospital covered it up," my father said. I wanted to come clean. I wanted to tell the family what really happened. But the hospital administration said it would destroy my career, destroy the hospital's reputation. They said the Langa family would sue for tens of millions. They said it was better for everyone if we called it an anesthesia complication. Rob went along with it because I begged him to. I told him it was a one-time thing, that I would never drink before surgery again, that I would spend the rest of my career making it right. "By lying?" I demanded. "By letting people think you're a hero? By saving lives?" My father shot back. "Anna, I have spent the last 30 years trying to make up for what I did. Every surgery I performed after Elizabeth, I did perfectly. I never had another patient die on my table. Not one. I worked longer hours than anyone else. I took the high-risk cases no one else would touch. I saved thousands of people because I couldn't save her." "That doesn't make it okay," Liam said. "I know it doesn't," my father said. He was crying openly now. "I know it doesn't. But what was I supposed to do? Turn myself in? Go to prison? Lose my license? I had a wife and a daughter. I had a career. I had people depending on me. Elizabeth Lang had a husband and a son," I said. "They depended on her. And you took her from them? And then you lied about it." "I know," my father said. His voice broke. "I know. Do you think I don't know that? Do you think I haven't thought about her every single day for 30 years? Do you think I don't see her face every time I close my eyes? Uncle Rob saw her face too," I said, "and it killed him." My father flinched like I had slapped him. "Rob's death is the worst thing I've ever been responsible for, worse than Elizabeth's, because Rob died slowly over 23 years and I watched it happen. I watched the guilt destroy him, and I couldn't help him because I was the source of his guilt." "Why did you keep working with him?" Liam asked. "Why did you keep up the partnership?" "Because ending it would have raised questions," my father said. And because part of me thought if I could just be there for him, if I could just be his friend, maybe he'd be okay. But he wasn't okay. He was never okay again after Elizabeth died. And when he killed himself, I knew it was because of me, because of what I'd made him do, the lie I'd made him carry. And you just retired? I asked. You just walked away with all those awards and that hospital wing with your name on it? I retired because I couldn't do it anymore, my father said. After Rob died, I couldn't walk into that hospital without feeling like I was drowning. Every hallway, every OR, every patient reminded me of what I'd done. I retired because staying was killing me too. Good, I said coldly. You deserve to feel that way. My father looked at me with such pain in his eyes that I almost took the words back. Almost, but I didn't. Because he did deserve it. He deserved all of it. Anna, he said softly, I am so. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't bring Elizabeth back or undo what I did to her family, but I need you to know that I have tried every day since that surgery to be a better man. I stopped drinking completely. I never touched alcohol again. I became the best surgeon I could be. I tried to live a life that would honor her memory, even if I couldn't tell anyone what I was doing. You don't get to honor her memory, I said. You don't get to make yourself feel better by saying you worked hard. You killed her. You covered it up. You destroyed her family. And you've been lying to everyone who loves you for 30 years, including me. I was trying to protect you, my father said weakly. From what? I demanded. From knowing who you really are? He didn't have an answer for that. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Liam spoke. What do you want to do, Anna? I looked at my father. He looked so small, sitting in his chair, crying like a child. This was the man who had taught me to ride a bike, who had stayed up all night with me when I was sick, who had walked me down the aisle at my wedding, and he was also the man who had killed someone and spent decades lying about it. Both of those things were true, and I didn't know how to hold both of them in my head at the same time. I don't know, I said finally. I don't know what I want. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm your father, he said desperately. I'm still your father. Are you? I asked, because the father I knew wouldn't have done this. He didn't have an answer for that either. I stood up. I can't be here right now. I can't sit through dinner and pretend that everything is fine. I can't go to the party tomorrow and watch everyone celebrate you when I know what you did. What are you going to do? My father asked, panic creeping into his voice. I don't know, I said again. But I'm leaving. Liam and I are going to a hotel. And you need to tell Mom. Tonight. You need to tell her everything. She deserves to know the truth. Anna, please, my father begged. Don't do this. Not now. Not before the party. You should have thought about that 30 years ago, I said. I walked to the door. Liam followed me. Anna, wait, my father called after me. I didn't wait. I walked out of the study, past my mother in the kitchen, and out the front door. I heard my mother calling after me, confused, but I didn't stop. I got in the car. Liam got in the driver's seat. And we left. We drove in silence to a hotel near the airport. Liam checked us in. We went to the room. And then, finally, I broke down. I cried so hard I thought I might be sick. Liam held me and didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Later that night, my phone rang. It was my mother. I didn't answer. She called again. And again. Finally, she left a voicemail. Her voice was shaking. Anna, your father told me everything. I can't believe it. I can't believe he kept this from me. From all of us. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. Please call me back, please. I didn't call her back. I turned off my phone and lay in the dark hotel room, staring at the ceiling. The next day, the anniversary party was canceled. My mother sent a message to all the guests saying there had been a family emergency. People were confused and concerned, but no one pushed for details. Over the next few weeks, the truth slowly came out. David Lang, the son of the woman my father had killed, went public with his story. He gave interviews. He shared the documents. The hospital released a statement saying they were investigating the claims. My father's name was removed from the hospital wing. Former patients came forward, some defending him, some horrified. The medical community was divided. Some said one mistake shouldn't define a career. Others said the cover-up was unforgivable. My mother filed for divorce. She said she couldn't stay married to someone who had lied to her for 40 years. She loved him, but she couldn't trust him. And without trust, what was the point? I didn't speak to my father for 6 months. He called and texted constantly. He sent letters. He showed up at my house once, but I refused to let him in. I needed time. I needed space to process who he really was. Eventually, I agreed to meet him for coffee. It was awkward and painful. He looked older, like the weight of the truth had physically aged him. He apologized again. He told me he understood if I never forgave him. He said he would spend the rest of his life trying to make amends, even though he knew he never really could. I didn't forgive him that day. I'm not sure I've fully forgiven him now, a year later. But I'm trying to reconcile the father I knew with the man who made a terrible mistake and then compounded it with 30 years of lies. I'm trying to understand that people are complicated, that good people can do bad things, that love and anger can exist in the same space. Liam has been my rock through all of this. He never pushed me to feel a certain way. He never told me what to do. He just supported me, listened to me, and loved me through the worst period of my life. Our marriage is stronger now than it's ever been. We've seen each other at our worst and chosen to stay. That means something. David Lang reached out to me a few months ago. We met for lunch. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I apologized for what my father had done, even though I knew an apology from me meant nothing. He was kind about it. He said he didn't blame me. He just wanted his mother's story to be known. He wanted the truth. I understood that. I wanted the truth too. Even though it had destroyed the image of my family I'd carried my entire life. I think about Elizabeth Lang sometimes. I wonder what her life would have been like if my father hadn't made that mistake. I wonder who she would have become, what her relationship with her son would have looked like as he grew up, the grandchildren she never got to meet, the life she was owed. And I think about my father, about the thousands of lives he saved after hers, about whether that counts for something, about whether redemption is possible after a lie that big. I don't have answers. I'm not sure anyone does. What I do know is this. My father built our family's happiness on a devastating lie. He was a hero to the world and a coward in the moment that mattered most. He saved lives, and he took one. He loved me, and he betrayed everything I thought he stood for. All of those things are true. And I have to find a way to live with that. My father, my hero, built our family's happiness on a devastating lie. Can you ever truly forgive something like that? Let me know what you think in the comments below.